Well, it is Thursday, the 10th of July. I almost said January. 10th of July, 2025. Once again, coming to um, this time about something to do with the Israel situation. Coming to you live from Israel, by the way. And that is the State of Zionism. And what I mean by that is, yes, on two fronts, right? One, Israel is literally the state of Zionism. Because what is Zionism? Zionism, literally, like the dictionary definition, if you will, of the Zionist movement is literally and quite simply the right of Jews, right, or the right for Jews to live in their ancestral homeland and have self-determination in that homeland, right? Just like Hungarian people have the right to live in Hungary, in their ancestral homeland, or French people have the right to live in their ancestral homeland, right? People who are French and Israeli could live in both. People who are German and French and have both nationalities somehow can live in either of those countries, right? People who are multiple nationalities have the right to live in the nations to which they are somehow connected. And Israel happens to be a country, by and for and about the Jews, whether you are born in Israel or not. Why? Because for thousands of years, Jews have constantly lived here. And during that period of time, the majority, like there was a period of time when the majority of Jews did not live here. Some still did, though, always, but they didn't have sovereignty and self determination here, right? They lived under other empires that had temporarily conquered the place, and many empires had temporarily conquered the place, but it was always and only a country in the name of Israel when it was a Jewish country, or a country governed by Jews, right, with self determination for the Jews. But notice that when it was, other people also had and have today rights here, full rights as citizens. But when it was other conquerors who ran this place, then people who were not part of their tribe did not have full equal rights, right? It's literally only when the Jews have self determination here that equal rights are granted to other people of other religions and cultures and backgrounds, etc. And you could certainly say that's true going back. I mean, name one group other than the Jews that has ever that has ever governed this place and had sovereignty here and self determination here that granted equal rights to all of its citizens. Not one other group ever did it. Only the Jews have done that here. So, um, so the question is the state of Zionism now, since Israel's already 77 years old, right? It's like in its 78th year, right? Is the state is Zionism already well past the point of even referring to it as an ongoing project or movement, or has it evolved into something else completely? Or should we, do away with the phrase Zionism and just say this is, modern Israel, right? Okay, you can ask whatever questions you like. For me, it's kind of obvious. Okay, it's kind of obvious that yes, Zionism achieved its primary goal, which is for Jews to have self determination in Israel. Yes, that was achieved 77 years ago when Israel was reestablished as a state after more than 1800 years, almost 1900 years of not having a state officially that we could, have self determination in as a people, right, as a Jewish people. But the fact that we have a state where we have self determination does not mean that the Zionist concept or movement is dead. Why? Well, because one of the many things that Zionism is, apart from the very simple definition, which is to have a state where we have self determination in that state, Zionism is the hope that we, the Jewish people, will return to Jerusalem. Zion, literally, Mount Zion is in Jerusalem, right? Um, the hope is that the Jewish people will return to Mount Zion, and this is the religious slash or the religious and spiritual kind of view, right? And that doesn't mean that every Israeli believes it, obviously, but the Jewish hope on a religious level and a spiritual level, and the one that Jews pray for, 3 times a day, and that most Jews around the world have dear in their heart, even if they're not religious, when they think about it or when they learn about it, the hope of the Jewish people, which is why the national anthem is called The Hope. The hope of the Jewish people is that we as a Jewish people will return to Jerusalem and return to Israel and build the third temple in Jerusalem, hopefully without causing problems to whatever exists there now, so that there won't be all kinds of furor about it, and that we can all get along peacefully. That's my hope anyway. But even if not, right, that's the eternal hope, is that we hope for this thing. Maybe it can never be achieved. Maybe it can be, but it isn't yet fully achieved. Yes, we do have a state, so you can say that that goal is met. You can say 77 years ago that goal was met, right? We have a state, we have self-determination in that state, right? Jews built a state for Jews, by Jews, about Jews. It doesn't mean it's run under Jewish law necessarily. Yes, there are some Jewish laws that apply in Israel or that are respected in Israel, obviously, and anybody can be whatever religion they want in Israel. And more than a quarter of the citizens of Israel are not Jewish, obviously, because you got 2.5 million Arabs, of which most of them are Muslims, some of them are Christian. About like 4/5 of them Muslim, 1/5 of them are Christian, or something like that, roughly. Then you got Druze, and you got other types of people here as well. Right? So it's not like it's a an ethno monoblock. Right? It's not like we only have Jews in Israel. No, this is just not true. Right? There's all kinds of people in Israel from all kinds of backgrounds and religions and belief systems and whatever. Yes, it's mostly Jews and Muslims. 75% Jews, and roughly, I don't know, it's 18%, 22%, 22% Arab, of which I think is like 18% Muslim, 4 or 5% Christian, whatever the mix is. Right, it's a pretty healthy dose of a mixture. Right, it's not just one big. Like if you go to Jordan, right, it's like 99.9% Muslim Arabs. Right, the other 0.1% are the few tourists. I'm not kidding about that, but like there are very few, non-Muslims living in Jordan. Yes, it's not 99.9% necessarily, but it's very high percentage of Muslim Arabs, right? Either they're Bedouin or they're Sunni Arabs. Doesn't matter. They're still Arabs who are Muslim for the most part. You won't find too many Jews living in Jordan, even though we have technically peace with Jordan. Most of them live in the embassy, right? The Israeli embassy. There's not a lot of Jews just living in Jordan randomly. You might be able to find some, but not a lot, right? Same like in Egypt, right? There's practically no Jews left in Egypt except for those working in the embassy, and that's a country which once had a very strong, Jewish community until the 1950s, when they all started getting kicked out by Gamal Abdel Nasser, like my family did on that side of my family. And you can go through every Arab country, like they're all ethno states, they're all ethno supremacists in the Arab states. Name me one country where they're like the country where you'll find diversity of ethnicities. You'll also find a lot of conflict between them, like massive, like bloody conflict, right? Here in Israel, you actually have different ethnicities, and we generally get along, right? In Israel, right? Arabs and Jews don't shoot each other left and right in the streets, right? Israeli Arabs are proudly Israeli, right? and they wouldn't trade it, right? If you ask, there's plenty of videos where you can see if you ask just typical Arab Israelis, would you rather live here or in under Arab rule anywhere, including if there was ever a state called Palestine or some other place, and overwhelmingly they'll say, no, I'd rather live in Israel. Thank you very much. I have a better life here, and I have more rights here. I'm free here. I can do what I want here. I can build a business here. I can be successful here, etc., etc. They have a lot of freedoms in Israel that they just simply would never have in an Arab country. And so, in that sense, Zionism has also been achieved because not only do the Jews have self determination in our own ancestral homeland, although arguably I could say Judea and Samaria is really the heart of the ancestral homeland, and we don't really have self determination in all of that area. Certainly not in Area A, and certainly not in parts of Area B where it's mixed control, right? But okay, let's just say overall security. Technically, the IDF still has that, but still, there are no Jews living in Area A, for example, like at all. It's complete apartheid, right? And there are no Jews living in pretty much all of the Arab world. There used to be a million or more Jews living in the Arab world until Israel became a state again in 1948, and then the Arabs started to kick all the Jews out. Now there's like, instead of a million, there's around 3,000 if you add up all the Jews in all the Arab countries that kicked out the Jews. That's nothing, right? It's nothing. Where do they go? Well, they were ethnically cleansed. They were kicked out. So when people say, oh, Israel wants to ethnically cleanse Gaza or Judea and Samaria, no. The people that are saying that in support of the side that actually did the real ethnic cleansing and actually kicked out the Jews from their countries, right? I mean, it's crazy. And nowadays, these days, you go to a lot of these countries, like if you go to Morocco or the United Arab Emirates, countries that have, like part of the Abraham Accords, or even countries that have other peace agreements with Israel, like Egypt and Jordan, you'll find that they also don't like the very same people that have been, fighting us for years, right? They don't like the Hamas people. They've outlawed the Muslim Brotherhood. They've outlawed even the Hamas or whatever. They've told them to not come, not do rallies in their countries and things like that. They've kicked out their offices. Why? Because they don't want them in their country. They know how extreme and radical they are. They know what a problem they are, right? They know as much as we know in that sense. And they don't like them any more than we do. In fact, in many cases, they like them just as little as we do, right? Or less, because they've also done bad things to them in their own countries. And so that's why it's just important to keep that in mind, that what we have is a situation where we, on the one hand, the movement has been satisfied, has the goals have been reached. On the other hand, the goals have not been reached, and that's why we still have that movement in existence today, because we want to see the other goals be met, if that makes sense. We want to see the rest of the Zionist goals be met. Anyway, that'll do it for now, folks. Short little commentary on Zionism. Hopefully it was insightful. If it was, feel free to subscribe, like, do the things, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.